It'll take a minute for people to populate up anyway. So I think
Did you do a live earlier today?
yeah, I did my 11:15 live. So I did my
How long
regular,
is that
you know,
for?
what's that?
How long do you go live for at 11:15? Like an hour?
Yeah, I mean, I was going much longer. I was going for, I was going for like 2 hours for a while, sometimes longer, but it was getting to be too much. Like, I think I would lose people. I think I would come out of those lives exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep the lives to like, hey, Jules, hey, Ann, how are you guys? Hey guys, Crowdsource Carrie is with us today. We're going to talk politics. We're just sort of getting ourselves settled. So if you guys can just, I can see you guys starting to populate in. So we're going to talk politics a little bit. This will be a very casual, just chit chat. Crowdsource Carrie is another. She's an influencer. She's on the opposite side of the country, and she has a good perspective on things. So it'll be interesting to hear what's. And this is, by the way, everyone. This is Carrie.
Hi.
Carrie, Carrie, everyone.
Sorry
Uh,
for the late arrival.
oh,
You got to be
stop.
late. If you live on the West Coast, we're late for everything.
Oh, that's a thing. That's like a West Coast thing. My wife
When
is
I
late for everything, and she's she's been on the East Coast for her entire. She blames it on the fact that my wife was born in India, so
Oh,
her reason is that she operates on Indian time. But I don't. I guess we all have our things.
when I first moved to LA, I was like, I'm from the Midwest, so I was like 20 minutes early everywhere. And people would show up a little bit after we were supposed to be there, and I thought it was so rude.
That's pretty fun. I'm so glad I because since Carrie and I have just gotten to know each other in the last month and a half or so, but I have noticed that you sound the Midwest though. Like I
Do I?
never asked you. I thought about it, but I felt I didn't know you well enough to ask you if you were originally from California. But I can hear it. You're definitely, I where in the Midwest are you from?
So I grew up in Minnesota. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. You sound great.
And I grew up in Minnesota. I grew up in like a town of like 2,000 white people. So I had like 84 people in my class. So after I went to college and I did a trade school after I went to college, I moved to LA and now I've lived here most of my life. But I definitely came here in my early 20s. Did not grow up here.
Okay, so could you ever go back to Minnesota? Could you do
You know
that
what's
again?
funny? For probably the first 10 years that I lived here, I was like, oh, I don't like it. I can't even imagine leaving now. Like I say
Right.
all the time, I was going to leave California, it would be to another country because uh, the people are just incredible here. And it's a melting pot of people that are literally following their dreams. And I think even though there's people following their dreams everywhere, here you can meet people constantly that you're like, how did it go when you first moved here? And they're like, oh, I moved 10 times and I slept on the floor. And I'm like, yeah, me too.
That's really cool. Were you because I didn't know that you were from Minnesota. Like, how were you um like what was it like being in California during the ice, you know, situation in
You know,
Minnesota? Like what were you I never thought to ask you because I you sounded like you were from Minnesota, but I didn't know. And
yeah.
but do you have family back there or friends or were they dealing with it? What were you? This is not what we're going to focus on today, guys. But I'm learning new things, so I'm very curious.
So first, my family is mega. My family that lives in the rural areas of Minnesota are all mega. In fact, I kind of spy on my dad's Facebook to see what he's been posting. And he stopped posting because of the Iran war. And I was like, oh, is that the turning point for you? But for me, it was really hard to be here in California when ICE was, attacking Minneapolis. I think they still are actually. It's just not getting news coverage. But because all my college friends live in Minneapolis, and then my parents are MAGA, they lived way out in the country and they just pretended like nothing was going on. They didn't say one peep about it. And then on the opposite side, I had friends from college that got tear gassed
Oh
because
wow.
medicine. And some of them went out to the protest to just be a volunteer medic, and they ended up getting gassed. Like they weren't disrupting, they weren't doing anything crazy. I mean, these are 60-year-old people getting sprayed with tear gas just because they're trying to help people. It was it
That is
that was
insane.
it made me break down crying because we hear these stories on the news, oh, this is happening, oh, that is happening, but when it starts to directly affect the people you love, it's a different kind of sadness you feel.
Oh yeah, were they okay? I mean, did anybody really get? I mean, did anybody get seriously injured that you knew?
Nobody got seriously injured, but the gas or whatever it was they were spraying at people burned, and it didn't matter. Whatever they put on their skin out on the streets didn't really take that sensation away. And
Right.
then went home to like take a shower and wash it all off. It just was like a lingering feeling, especially they had masks on, I believe sunglasses, but it still gets in your eyes.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh wow, that's horrible. I never knew that. And and one thing, I'm looking at the Instagram feed, guys. If you're on Instagram right now, obviously I didn't get this straightened out right on my streaming platform. I when I multi-stream, I have both a horizontal and a vertical stream, and I'm still trying to figure out the vertical stream. So Carrie, Instagram can only see you, so they're not. I'm actually, there's it's a split screen, but not on Instagram. So I will. Actually, I think I know what the problem is, but I don't think I can fix it while we're live. No, I can't fix it. So Instagram, you can see Carrie, you can hear us both, and I'll fix it next time. I think I just put the wrong setting in Instagram. So sorry about that, guys. Can I ask you one more question though? Because
yeah,
I didn't before we get to the political stuff of the moment.
yep.
Um, like your parents, right? Is that to the extent that you're comfortable? I mean,
Yeah, no, no.
I didn't know we were gonna like get into this,
No,
but are
yeah,
you like one of the things that I can't stand is seeing the families that have been broken up and friendships that have been. I mean, I have some family members that are MAGA, but I'm not that close to. They don't really talk to me anymore
right,
because of what I do, and they've become aware of it. And but I wasn't that close to them
right,
as well, so I don't feel like that, I don't feel that sense of loss, but it's got to be hard with with your parents, like having parents from that community, but at the same time, right, it's still your parents. So
yeah,
is that, and two things, is it hard? And then the other thing is, you think your dad may have shifted? Was the war, you think, fine? Because I know there's red lines, right? There for some
right,
folks from the community, it was Epstein. For some folks, it's the economy that didn't work out, right? For some folks, it's that they really didn't think that Trump was going to do what he said he was going to do, which was, basically try to throw out as many brown people as possible. Is this for your
right.
dad? Do you think this is the thing finally?
I think, well, a couple things. One, when they were raiding Minneapolis, it was very hard for me because I know the things that are said behind closed doors in MAGA circles.
Mhm.
And the Somali people being attacked really made me very sad because not only are they not white, they're not even Christian, right? So it was like a double whammy. It was like a double whammy of extra just being mean, like so mean you can't even imagine. I had a conversation with a guy I went to high school on Facebook, and I'm trying to get better at talking to people that I know that are MAGA, and not because I just want to blow up at them, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to hate them and stay calm. So, I would see things from my family and from people that I grew up with that they would say things like, I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, they could pew pew all of them, like stuff like that. And I was like, they're like, oh, they're all stealing from the government and blah blah blah. And so I said, you do realize that's like saying all white men are alcoholics and they beat their wives. Like saying something like that. And then they would come back and go, yeah, you're right. I don't hate all immigrants. I just, I like the Mexicans because they work hard. Like they say stuff like that.
Wow.
It's so with that being said, It is hard on my family. I would say in like 2016, when my dad told me he was going to vote for Donald Trump, I will never forget this. I was driving on the freeway, talking on the phone, and I said, Dad, you're going to vote for a guy that said he would grab women by the, and you raised a woman like me. Like, I'm from a family of strong, like Viking women, right?
Mm.
And he's like, well, he's just a man, and that's how men talk, and blah, blah, blah. Now, keep in mind, my dad is young. He's like 70. So he was, whatever, 60 years old then. It was like crazy. So now it's super hard because my relationship with my parents has definitely splintered. We don't talk about politics, but my dad's very vocal about politics on his Facebook. So I know where he stands. And, um, like when we had the potential threat from Iran last week in LA where they said they might be trying
Yeah.
to attack our own. There was just like no word. Like it would be kind of nice if my dad would call and go, "Are you guys okay? We're worried about you. Is that true? What's going on?" But not a peep. So
Uh,
it's definitely changed my relationship with my family because I'm a parent myself. I can't imagine not checking on the safety of my children. You know?
yeah, that's pretty brutal. I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully something will, I mean, hopefully something will shift. I mean, that politics won't. It just sucks that this has happened, right? So many families and I often say, like, I think sometimes, like, not just about families, but about like surrendering our democracy. Like, like I figure, like, if you're gonna lose your family, right? You're gonna lose democracy. Let it not be to an idiot. Like
Right.
that is one of the things that I talk about it a lot on social. I talk about it with my family. Like, it's so ridiculous that this is all happening with with this. I mean, if you're going to lose your look, if an evil genius is going to become like, the autocratic dictator of the United States of America, or the person who inspires families to be broken apart, I don't know. It's like rubbing salt on the wound that it's this character. You know what I mean? That it's this buffoon that, but maybe I don't know. Maybe only maybe this buffoon is the only one that could have achieved this. I don't know, but and now you're growing as an influencer too, a pro democracy influencer. So, we'll I wonder how that will affect things over time
You know,
with the
it's
family.
fun. That's how I started on TikTok. I started making videos for a couple different reasons, but one of them was I didn't want anybody in my real life to ever find me, and I needed like an outlet, right? Because we can't talk about things at work, right? I mean, you
Yeah,
shouldn't. But this is so divisive right now that people do talk about it at work. And so it's been interesting because, people that I grew up with are finding me and I'm like, oh, here I am. But I keep thinking like if I just stay in this lane and I just convince one person to think differently, that's my whole year is made. You know what I mean?
sure. Yeah, I get it, and I feel the same way too. Like, I feel if I like this, I go live almost every day, and now I'm sort of trying to do more things and grow my community. But I feel like through that process, if I like, my whole thing is like, if everything I do online boils down to one thing, it's to remind everybody that what I was saying before, that Trump is an idiot, right? And
Yeah.
we might be okay. If there's anything that's going to save us, it's that. And if one person is okay, is a little better that day,
Hmm.
then it's like worth it. You know what I mean? You got through to someone. Someone feels a little less scared, a little less overwhelmed. So I get that, and I think that's, we're trying to build our communities, and build this into careers and stuff. But I think as we get older too, the legacy that we leave, because what are we leaving to our kids? And I don't want to leave them in an idiocracy, like an idiot autocrat. Like, I don't want, like, I don't want my
Well,
son to grow up in the dumbest autocracy that has ever been.
That's one thing that I think is fascinating is because I grew up so differently than I'm raising my own kids. And it's wild to me. It's like a proof that like you're a product of your environment, right? So I think about like how I grew up and the things I used to think versus how I'm raising my own kids and how like a couple years ago we went to Thailand for a month and we went flew right into Bangkok and my kids were like unfazed. They were like, this place is amazing. Let's try all these foods and meet all these people. They just are so ready to like soak up different experiences and they're not scared. That's the thing that I think is the biggest problem with politics right now is people are afraid. So everybody that's like hardcore MAGA, they are scared because they believe the things that they're saying and they are terrified and loyal to a person that keeps stoking their fears, right? So they're living in that environment and there's everybody around them thinks like that. So they, it's truly like the truth to them, which I think is so it's really hard. That's really hard.
Yeah, I mean, is it? I, look, I agree with you. I agree. I mean, it is. Trump, as dumb as he is, had the ability to dial into people's fears, right? And that's obviously, and create sort of this national populist movement based on the worst. The brown people are coming to take your jobs and your children and your houses. They're taking they're going to kill you and take everything from you with this invasion. Remember the whole campaign was the invasion. They're invading, right? We had all of
Yeah.
that lunacy, and that touched on all the fears of all of these fearful people. But
Yeah.
you know and I know, and I'm sorry, Carrie. I know this is kind of turning into an interview. It's just the journalist in me. I'm going there because I'm so intrigued by this.
I don't care at all. We can talk about whatever.
Uh, but within with the your with your closeness to the or you know so many people within the MAGA community is because I wonder what drives it and what motivates it, right? And you made this point that it is fear. But what about the choice part too? Like
Right.
the races, the two things that I wonder, like the fear, three things. I always saw it as fear, uh, racism, just a dislike of the other, which
Yeah.
tied into self-victimization. Like Trump made it okay. Supposedly the Republican Party, which was once the party of supposedly self-responsibility, pull yourself up from the by your bootstraps, became the party of everything wrong in your life is the brown people's fault, right?
Right.
Or is the other's fault. So I think that Trump kind of made that self-victimization okay. You didn't have to hide that anymore. You could just that way you could just come out and say it. Like it's their fault that my life sucks. But
Right. Right.
do you see
Totally.
from your relationships with people in that community, do you is it really what drives them more the fear of these populist issues, or is it more the racism and the self-victimization, or is it all of it, or is it something else?
So for me, my opinion is that it's fear driven and that fear is backed up at the grocery store and the barber shop and their circles of people that they're talking to and Fox News, right? But also with that being said, it makes me furious because I came from that. And I came up when there was no internet. We had no internet. Now we have just a wealth of knowledge. Okay. There's the internet, there's documentaries, there's books to read, there's people to talk to, there's debates to listen to online to debunk the fears. I understand where people get hung up and confused on politics and policy because that stuff is complicated, right? So if you're not like a junkie like you and me about politics, it's hard to like really understand it all. But I think it's fear. And I also think that everybody wants to be part of something, right? So when you think about small towns, if they are really red or really MAGA, imagine being the five people that are like, oh no, we don't believe that stuff, right? Like in my little town, there was one person that protested. at the last No Kings. And I'm like, you are such a badass, right? Because that takes a lot of guts to do that, because you know that when you go to the grocery store or church or whatever, people are like, oh, she was out protesting, that weirdo, you know? And so I think that going against the grain of what everybody else is thinking is probably scary when your worldview is so confined. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's actually such a courageous thing to do because I'm thinking like, you were talking a little while ago about like, sort of when you reconnected with people from a long time ago. One of the reasons I avoided Facebook was because
Mhm.
everybody I know is on Facebook, and
Same.
I've been doing this like, I started out on TikTok like shortly after Hillary Clinton lost the election, right? So I've kind of
Right.
been, playing around on social media forever. But I avoided Facebook because that was for us, for people in our generation, that was the original. It was after MySpace, right? Facebook
Yep.
became the original social media tool. So
Yep.
everybody we know, and it was such a novel thing, like all your friends and all your family, and so even for these years that I've been this blabbering, loudmouth about politics on every place except Facebook because they're
Right.
all there. And I learned Lisa, and of course, what drives me is like and I make fun of sometimes I make fun of the corruption in the MAGA world, right? But money, right? I was like,
Yeah.
I learned recently that Facebook pays a lot of money, and I want to make more money as an influencer. So I was like,
Yeah.
all right, I better that's let me go. But I have to face all of those people there, and I'm hearing from them now.
Right.
Interestingly, I used to years ago, um, in a different life, I used to run a summer camp in Las Vegas, a Jewish summer camp. I've had a lot of different jobs throughout my life, and we had a lot of our counselors. We'd bring these counselors in from Israel, these Israeli kids, and a lot of them, these they're not kids anymore. They're like full born grown-ups, right? With kids. But I went onto Facebook and I've been talking about the war, obviously. And I've had to one of those kids who is now a grown ass adult,
Yeah.
because the Israelis have a very different perspective on the war, obviously, than we
Right.
do. Um, so I've had to face up and kind of deal with that, with this community that I've been avoiding because I haven't had the courage to go there. So I really respect what you're saying when if you're in a small town and you're the lone voice, pro democracy voice, and I could see how maybe you think that, but for those who do it, it's really takes a lot of courage. But if you if you even if you don't do it, but you may have different, I can kind of understand why you would have closet case,
Yeah.
anti-Trump folks in MAGA world because look, I'm afraid to go on Facebook with people who I haven't seen in 30 years. Imagine, like you're saying, going to the grocery store, like that's, you know,
Well, I know what you're saying about the Facebook, because I feel like, okay, so basically I don't talk about politics on my personal Facebook, right? But there have been a few times that I am so furious. I will go on Facebook and be like, ICE was next door to my effing house. I don't say that, but ICE was next door to my house. If you think this is not affecting white Americans, you're wrong. And the reason why I say things like that is because they're so removed from the immigrant community. Of course, there's immigrants where they live, but there's not a lot, right?
yes,
And as much as the politics affecting you personally argument drives me insane, right? But I try to like make it so that people can see things differently. Like, for example, one day I literally made a video on TikTok and I'm like, white people, this is in the beginning, white people are asking me, can I tell that ISIS net like in my city? And I literally walked to the end of my driveway and I was like, here's the missing persons poster. Latino men do not go missing for no reason. This is on the tree outside of my driveway. Like, yes, it's in our face because One thing about ICE in California is it didn't start here last June. It was here since last January, a year ago. They raided the citrus fields, and it didn't get a lot of news coverage, right? Like ICE has been here for well over a year now, doing horrible things to people. So when I kind of going off on a tangent, when I talk to, like I don't know, like with the people that I grew up with, I feel like embarrassed that I feel that way. That sounds terrible, but it's like I'm trying to unlearn all those things that made me me. You know what I mean?
No, I
And
get it.
so, yeah. And so, like, I feel like, I don't know, I guess I was on TikTok trying to hide from these people and I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah. I know, but there's something, and I want to, because I don't want the time to get away from us. I want to ask you specifically about California too, because I
Yeah.
know uh, I don't talk about what's going on in California with the governor's race, and I want to hit that before we get to, because I think we need to know about that, and I know you've been talking a lot about that. Um, but just to kind of wrap up on this, that's such a good point that ICE has been there
Mm-hmm.
for, because Gavin Newsom became, when he became a political lightning rod, rightfully
Yep.
so, and but bef- I, even before Newsom gained national attention to the extent that he did during that, if there's an invasion, right, that Trump is lying about the invasion of the brown people, but the actual, what we perceive to be the first ICE invasion that we're aware of was California. But
Right.
you're making such a good point. They were there, right? They were,
Yeah.
this was, you know, and there were, you would get these little news clips and everything else going on about it, but it didn't gain national attention. Um, until that big surge, right? And then even
Right.
that in the beginning didn't necessarily. It's when it got even larger where, Trump brought in the National Guard and Trump brought in the what was it, 600 Marines or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So then but this has been building up for a while, right? So
Yeah.
have you guys felt, like, are you always on edge? Like, do you have you do you I don't know what question I'm trying to ask. I feel like, do you feel like you're in a war zone? Did you feel like you were in a war zone? And has that been constant since, not just what we'll call here the invasion, but since it started, which was shortly after Trump was inaugurated, right?
Right. So I'm going to speak from a white person's
Right.
experience that's only learning, covering, talking, and getting involved in immigration enforcement stuff. So last year, when they raided the citrus fields, I think it was like January 28th. And, they come in with like helicopters and vans,
Right.
like it's insane. And at that time, I don't I don't think, me personally, I thought it would get as crazy as it's gotten, because obviously I'm not worried for my safety, right? But I don't think, in that moment, I was thinking it's horrible what they're doing to these people, right? And I don't think the rest of the country understands how much food California produces for the entire country, right?
Yeah.
So, but then in June, when they did this insane attack in downtown LA, it was, excuse my French, freaking terrifying, because they went in with like military trucks with
Hmm.
guys standing on the trucks with these big guns, just like 20 trucks deep into downtown Los Angeles, and they went into the garment district. The worst part about it is, I mean, there's so many things. Freaking Dr. Phil was with them.
Oh, I
Dr.
remember
Phil,
that. Yes.
like, what a POS. And so, anyways, so they went into downtown LA. They were dragging people out, but they were lying and saying that it was like a bust. And it's like, no. And in the garment district, I mean, it was really, really sad, because it's innocent, people just trying to work. They're not obviously all criminals. Like, it was insane, right? And I think that California gets a lot of hate talk. So, of course, the news just went wild about all this dishonest stuff about California. And then it was horrible, because they painted this picture that the entire city of LA was on fire and people were
Yes, or I remember.
1 square mile. And the city of LA is 500 square miles. Okay. And when people talk about, like, I live in LA, a lot of times they're talking about, I live in LA County, which is 5,000 square miles. It's huge here. And one thing that drove me crazy during those raids is like like arguing with people online going, LA's not on fire. Like, it was in a concentrated area where the protesting was, but ICE was everywhere. They made it look like they were just in downtown LA, but they were everywhere. And in fact, it my ex-husband is an Air Force veteran. He got reignited really bad PTSD from this because he lives very close to downtown LA. The guards were there, the Marines were there. There was like, I mean, they were walking in formation through neighborhoods. They were tearing people out. They would show up in the middle of a suburban neighborhood. They were at the mall. They were at grocery stores. I mean, they still are. They are everywhere. And that is where Gregory Bovino and
Yep.
DHS started making these like propaganda videos of
Yeah.
like how cool they were, right? So we had like armed men on horses in a park in downtown LA. It was insane, right? And in that same park, there was like a I think a soccer club or a soccer camp going on for little kids. And they just like descended onto this park with horses. And at the time they were saying they were going after, I think, MS-13 or something. Like, it was just insane because they're creating this narrative that LA is so dangerous and the sanctuary city and state is out of control. Like, I mean, it was insane. And
It,
so it wasn't like in my face as far as the theatrics of that stuff, but it was in my face in that ICE was next door to my house on a Sunday. I went grocery shopping. I came home and I was thinking, oh, today's sort of a peaceful day. And it was crazy because I pull up to my house and ICE is next door because they're building a house. And so the guys just went running. And then the worst part of that was I felt like the next time I saw guys, I had to go, I didn't call them on you. Like, that's the worst, you know?
yeah. Yeah, that's horrible. I mean, it's that was I remember Dr. Phil with ICE. It was like he was living out his like, tough guy warrior, his like ultimate dream to be a real man, right? And it was so ridiculous. And I remember what you're talking about. I remember Bovino and with his camera crew and the absurdity of all of that. I think legacy media, for as useless as it can be, did a pretty good job. I mean, you could get the media you wanted, right? I mean, if you're going to watch
Right.
Fox News, yeah, all of LA was on fire, and all of LA was that one, right? This one
Yeah.
this one area, and But I think in terms of, I think Gavin Newsom, I think he did an effective job. I think he stood up to the plate, and that's around the time that I think Newsom started his online mockery of Donald Trump. Like his PR department started actually writing tweets in Trump style tweet, and they were
Right.
sort of mocking Trump. And I think it was effective, at least outside of California, because he Newsom, I think, did a good job of threading the needle about both pointing out the catastrophe and the manufactured crisis and the lies and the inhumanity of it all, but he juxtaposed that with the absolute absurdity of like it was such a like you used such a great word, theatrics. The
Yeah.
theatrics were so ridiculous, yet
Like,
a third of the
one
country
time
bought it, right?
Gavin Newsom was doing a press conference in Little Tokyo, which is a historical area of Los Angeles with lots of history. And they did an ice raid while he was doing this news conference. Like, what are you doing? Like,
I
it was
remember
literally
that. Yeah.
100 feet away from Gavin Newsom, like, just to get one vendor that was selling strawberries to make it look like it's insane here, right? And I think one of the things that I've realized in covering stories about immigration and what's going on is there are a lot of people that don't understand that immigrants own property. They have
Mhm.
car payments. They are not just, I mean, it was wild that I made a video once when they were attacking people in LA and they would rip them out of their cars and just leave their car in the middle of the street. And I made a video like, listen, this is what they're doing. They'll rip you out of the car and they'll just leave your car sitting there. And they're like, that's what they do when they give you a DUI. What do you expect them to do? And I'm like, you don't understand the layers of how deeply
Yeah.
this is going to go, because this person who's driving a Mercedes probably has a car payment, like, or maybe doesn't, but, like, it's just so it was a lot of proof that, including myself, how much people truly don't know about how successful immigrants are and all the things that they
Sure.
add to our country. The fact that we had a very professional not a very we had a professional attorney swiped out of a park, an Ecuadorian woman, like they just took
It's
her. And the crazy thing is she's like an attorney in a super wealthy area. Well, guess
right.
what? Her wild, right? And that was literally the beginning of all that craziness. It was
Well, yeah, but I think if you I think if you're, which is what I think the Trump regime, what Stephen Miller wanted to do, if you're going to dehumanize an entire population, and you have an audience that wants to that dehumanization to happen, they don't care. Like they don't want to know about the fact
no.
that this isn't just they came here illegally 20 years ago and they broke the law, and like Tom Hammond says, uh, the immigration slob, I mean czar, if they come in, they still committed a crime, and we're going to throw them out. And that the simplicity of that ignorance, I think, is appealing by choice to
Yep.
people who they don't want to know. And but I don't want to forget to ask you about this because I don't know enough about it, and
It's a,
I know a lot of the folks who are following me. I don't talk about it because I don't know enough. What on earth is going on with the California governor's race? Because it's a bellwether for the whole country in a way. And
yeah.
is this reporting that I'm seeing with the whole concept of the jungle primary that I don't completely understand? But is it really conceivable that California could accidentally wind up with two Republicans running
Okay.
against each other for governor just because? Is
So
that all like real?
that's all real. So we have what's called the jungle primary. So right now we have I think it's like two or three people running for Republican and 9 people running as Democrats. And half those people need to drop out, right? So in our primaries, when we vote, whoever the top vote getters are, they will go on our general election ballot. So if there's 2 Republicans, that's what's polling right now. If 2 Republicans win the most votes, we're going to have to choose between 2 Republicans running for governor in November. And it's I'm freaking out. And it's because, in my opinion, some of the Democrats need to drop out. Of course, we're California, so we have a lot of people that want to be more progressive than what some of the top polling Democrats are. And I think we're not there yet. Like, I want to be there too, but we're not there. So that is going on. And we're having all this drama with our election right now because one of the guys that's running as a Republican candidate is the sheriff of Riverside County, which is adjacent to Los Angeles County. He is basically a shorter Donald Trump.
Okay.
That's it.
Right.
And he is like the highest paid state employee. He makes like double what Gavin Newsom does
Oh, good
as far
Lord.
as
It's
his
insane. It's insane.
political history.
Right.
And I'm just like super corrupt. Well, I think it was last week. I'm not sure exactly when. The story just broke. He literally went around the attorney general and he seized 500,000 votes in Riverside County, and said that, there was a bunch of whatever fraud. They're starting the narrative, right? And he had a group of volunteer right-wing activists recount the votes from our Prop 50 election. So they're basically trying to take away what happened during Prop 50, which was California redistricting in order to counterbalance what Texas did. It is like, you can't make this drama up. Like, it is so insane. It's so insane.
So yeah, and so just to make sure I got this, like Like,
I,
he's so you're facing a situation where there's simply so many Democrats fighting with each other,
yep,
and you have two Republicans, right? And one of them
yep,
is this, you know, mini Donald Trump who is running around stealing uh, ballots or taking ballots because, right, this was in reference to the Prop 50 vote,
yep,
and so invariably he's breaking the law, I would assume, as the sheriff under the guise of an investigation, a nonsense, and there's a Republican activist, just a
yeah.
bunch of, so like, so if with just to make sure I get this with the jungle primary, so you could have it's 15, right? Is it 14 or 15 Democrats that are vying for the seat now, or or something like that, right?
There's 9 right now.
Oh, there's 9. Okay, so
Yeah.
they're all gonna go. Everybody gets lumped in together in this jungle primary, no matter whatever party you're at, and then it's the top two people. The top two, is that who? That's who runs.
It's the top 2 vote getters. So whoever the top 2 get the most votes, those are the people that are going to go on the California general election for governor.
So the Democrats could completely split the ticket 9 ways, so they could each get single digit numbers. And if
Yes.
and you could have two Republicans that get single digit numbers, but if those are higher than everybody else, those two,
Yeah.
one of them being this nut sheriff,
Yeah.
will be the next governor of that is I mean, do you because governor you've had Republican governors before. You know, obviously there's Reagan,
Yeah.
there was Schwarzenegger, right? I mean, there's
Yep.
so California isn't like never going to do that. But
Right.
do you really think like I mean, do you really I mean, I don't know I don't know the state, the state politicians are like, are they really that self-absorbed that you think that as you get closer to primary day, some of them won't bail? Or like,
Right.
is that really, or is it just worrying because the possibility is there and it shouldn't be? Or is this really, are they really not going to, are these personalities so strong that they're not going to go away?
I it's hard because you're seeing all over the internet people are like, "Listen, you guys, you need to drop out," right? But you have that third like Green Party hopeful group of people that's like, "No, I want, like there's a guy running that was a high school like social studies teacher. Like he needs to drop out
Yeah.
because he's part of the reason why he's splitting the vote, right? But then, like on Tuesday, we're going to have our governor's debate. Sorry, my dogs are acting crazy. And they didn't, they, this is a whole, it's just all crazy. On Tuesday, we're going to have our governor's debate. And I believe 5 or 6 people were invited. They were invited based on how they're polling and how much money they've raised. Well, there's this guy that just entered the California governor's race running as a Democrat. He
Right.
entered at the end of January, but he's raised tons of money because he's got all these billionaires behind him. His name is Matt Mahan.
Okay.
Nobody's heard of him. Nobody knows anything about him, but yet he's going to be the one that's up debating, and he shouldn't be because it should be everybody else. I mean, there's this guy running Becerra. He's been on the ticket, or he's been running since last April. Why is he not in the debate? He's the former attorney general of California, and people actually really like him. It's just like it's just proof that like I really feel like the Republicans are really trying to just buy their way to this vote. They are going to take it over by creating this corruption with the Riverside County vote and then convincing USC to basically only have the highest fundraisers debate for the governor. Like it's insane.
Wow, that is crazy. And what you said, I wonder if the Republicans, if there are Republican super PACs and whatnot that are actually funding some of these Democrats secretly just to because why not, right? They would.
So there's a guy, the Matt Mahan, the guy that just
Mhm.
entered the race at the end of January. His funders are like the co-founder of Google,
Right.
Palantir, Roblox, a guy named Rick Caruso, which I believe he was like he was in politics here in California. I think a mayor, I can't remember, of LA, but he's been Republican, he's been centrist, he's been Democrat. Like he's all over the place. He's super wealthy. I feel like he switches his party based on what he wants.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
but he's got billionaires backing him. So of course, it just kind of makes it unfair for people like Xavier Becerra, who's running and he's trying to do everything the right way, but he doesn't have billionaires backing him.
Yeah. And you know what? It's like it's also like this isn't just a state. It is a California issue because obviously you guys will have to deal with the consequences if the wrong person becomes governor. But at this moment, with U.S. democracy on the line, right, and a state, if a state like the midterms look good for the Democrats, across the board, and if there's any benefit to the upside to the worst things that Trump does at any given moment, which is every given moment.
Yeah.
It's that he becomes politically, politically he becomes less palatable, even to some of the most extreme MAGAs, depending on what he's like, the war and the cover up of the Epstein files. I mean, these are things that a lot of them are finally rebelling against. But the potential upswing for Republicans as they head into the midterms that could come from an epic fiasco like a Republican winning California at this moment would be it's almost catastrophic, I feel like, nationally. So it's I hope these people that need to drop out are able to look beyond just in addition to their own self-interest or their own ideology, the broader picture for the country of what a disastrous outcome would be for the country if a Republican at this moment were to win California. It would be a bad situation, I think, across the
I
board.
think that's what the problem is that, right now, people are like, who took money from APAC? We're not voting for them.
Yeah.
Whoever took money from APAC, whoever would have ever signed anything that was pro ICE. And those arguments are valid, but they drive me crazy because I don't think people understand how they package legislation, right? They don't understand that some of those things that Eric Swalwell has signed, as in agreement, like ICE, well, it was packaged with a bunch of other stuff. So, like, what is he supposed to do? Not saying it's okay, but we have to. California needs to get it together. We're going to have a Republican governor. I mean, 2 Republicans are polling the highest right now, and we're
Yeah.
like the state ever.
Oh yeah, and and look, I think it's across the board. I think look, I'm not a fan of APAC in any stretch of the imagination. Um, I would go much further than say I'm not a fan of APAC. Like, I'm intolerant, and I'm Jewish. I'm a Jewish American, and I have,
Right.
I have a sense of intolerance for what they're engaged in. But at the same time, I personally, I have to look at the bigger picture. I mean, we had these big elections in Illinois, and you had this, recently, and you had sort of these mixed bag results where in primary elections where some of the Democrats were like, I think it was the Democrat who's going to be running for Senate, for Dick Durbin's Senate seat, right? I can't remember the name of the one who won, but she was sort of pushing back against APAC and APAC donations and pushing back against big money. I mean, she was bankrolled by Pritzker, who's the governor, but he's at least the billionaire who we like. Like, he's a decent billionaire, right? But he funded her campaign. But there were other House races where APAC really supported intentionally tried to split the ticket and supported these candidates that they felt would be pro-Israel. And I feel like, even though for myself, like, again, even as an American Jew, Israel is at the top of my shit list right now because I really
Right.
dislike what has transpired there. When I step back and I look at this big picture, again, it's this bigger picture about American democracy. It matters how we win the House and the Senate, but it also matters that we win the House and the Senate, right?
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to have a legislator from Illinois who took APAC money, who's still going to caucus with the Democrats, um, as opposed to having Mike Johnson as the Speaker of the House again, or God forbid, having this nutcase sheriff, as the governor
See,
of your
this is
state.
what I don't understand. Even Republicans do not like what's happening right now. Why are you still voting in Republican crazy people?
I if anybody could answer that question, Carrie, if anybody could crack that nut, I think, like, why do we have 30% of the country still supporting Donald Trump? And a percentage of that percentage may not be brainwashed. I don't know. I think that's the great mystery of the Trump era is why the hell, right? Why does what look why like, and I even give a I even slightly give a pass, not really, but to some of the folks who, some of the horrible folks in the Trump administration, like, at least they're getting something out of it, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like Pete
Yeah,
Hegseth never could have the job he has, and he shouldn't by any stretch
no,
of the. But but at least, as vile and profane and unfit as he is, you can make the argument that that buffoon, he's doing it for transactional reasons, right? He'd never be there. But why
no,
is some guy who's voting against his own interest in Minnesota or California or here in New Jersey, they're not getting Hegseth's job, right? They're not getting anything except, bragging rights that the guy they voted for won. And, and we talked about generations, like, a lot of them are in our generation, right? I know there's a lot of young
yeah,
kids who shifted, but I think
right.
there's a lot of support in our space, and I just don't get those folks, and I don't know if I ever will, and I just hope we're okay. That's
I don't know. Like, I mean, honestly, uh, I feel hopeless right now. I'm not going to lie because all this time I've been thinking like our whole country is creating so much craziness across the world. And I feel very protected in a state of like California.
sure.
And I feel like people that live in blue states, they don't even understand how bad things really are because they have the protections of the blue states, right? And so they don't understand with these Republicans going into office potentially how bad it could really be. It could be worse than it is right now. And like what you're saying, you're Jewish. We have this conflict going on. I mean, not to switch subjects, but like even in your family, do you guys have divide over everything?
Not well. My mother hates Trump with the venom of 1,000 cobras. My dad, thinks he's a blundering imbecile and can't stand. So we're growing up in the same politics, and
But what
we
about
all kind of share our feelings about Israel's behavior right now. So we and my extended family. I have a very small family left. A lot of it's just one of those families that over the years the extended family just kind of moved away and sort of disappeared. I'm sure there's someone somewhere who
Mhm.
maybe is aware that I'm related to them and on social doesn't like it. And I'm also like you. I'm in a very in New Jersey, we're not always a blue state, but we're a pretty progressive state. I live in
Yeah.
northern New Jersey, just outside of New York, so I'm in a bubble. I don't
Yeah.
really deal with I'm okay at the supermarket. You know what I mean? Like I don't so I don't have any sort of interpersonal issues with my politics. I mean, there's a family member here or there, but we just don't discuss politics, and we don't really see each other that much. My
Mhm.
father-in-law, ironically, the dog is sensing that that but the dog is sensing that it's 2 o'clock and she probably wants to go out. But my father-in-law was, and again, my wife is Indian American. She came here when she was 4. My in-laws
Mhm.
came here in the 70s from India, and he voted for Trump 3 times, but he always said that he didn't like him. Like, it was very
Mhm.
strange. And within the Indian community, there's not a lot of Trump support, but there is
Right.
some. But my father-in-law finally now he hates him. But what took my father-in-law was again self-interest. He when Trump imposed the 50% tariff on India because Trump was mad about the Russian sanctions, even though Trump is as pro-Russia as you could be. Then my father-in-law, that's what shook him and woke him up because his pocketbook. Because when my in-laws, uh, my mother-in-law cooks all Indian food, and we always go to the Indian stores, and all of a sudden their grocery bill went up 50% overnight. Like everything was
Right.
so, and then from that shock, that sticker shock, my father-in-law woke up. Like it's like he was literally shaken out of it took money, but money talks with him, and he was shaken out of his delusion. And now he's able to see across the board, and he's actually kind of, uh, he's almost apologetic about it. Like, which is outwardly pleasant, unusually pleasant. He's like, I'm really sorry I voted for him 3 times. I didn't get it. And, my wife has no mercy. She'll be like, "Papa, how do you not get it? What do you do?" And she doesn't give him a break, but I'll kind of give him a little bit of a pass and be like, look, you know what? You did what you did, and you're doing what you're doing now. And,
Yeah.
so
Well, I think he is an example of how people were lied to, and that's the hardest part is that and like
Right.
innocent people really believed the BS that they were telling them. And a lot of people with money voted that way, right?
Sure.
Everybody stressed about money. I'm feeling stressed about money before this election, of course, like all of us are, but I don't know. At least he knows right from wrong.
Yeah, but it took a while, right? Right.
Yeah.
So Carrie, I think I've got to head out in a few minutes because
I,
I've got to pick up my son at 2:30, and I also he's got swim practice today, so I have to start making dinner because I got to feed him
yeah.
before swim practice. This was awesome though. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
And guys, I know Carrie and I kind of talked on other than my father-in-law seeing the light. Carrie's last comment was like, she's not all that hopeful, but she is more, because I've gotten to know her, and we're gonna do this for a while. We're gonna try this. We're gonna just she and I are just kind of starting it together. We're gonna invite some other people to join us once we get a system. So there's a little cliffhanger. Carrie's not hopeless. She doesn't not have hope. So come back next week. We're going to be on Carrie's socials, and we're going to switch back and forth. And then when we get a larger group of people who are joining us, we're going to kind of do it. We're going to just kind of switch around to everybody's socials per week, and we're going to have these kind of conversations, and I think it's gonna. I think it's gonna be. It's gonna be good. I really appreciate it. It was awesome, Carrie.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Awesome.
this.
Thank you so much, you guys. It was nice to meet
All
everybody.
right. Take care. Okay, everybody. I'll see you soon. I'll see you soon too, Carrie. Take care, everyone.
Okay, bye.